The morning air was sharp, the kind that filled your lungs like icy glass. Ethan tightened the straps on his backpack and stepped off the gravel road onto the narrow trail that wound through the pine woods. It was just past 5:30 a.m., and the forest, shrouded in a thin curtain of fog, was silent. He hadn't come here to see anyone. Quite the opposite. After the past year, silence felt more like home than anything else. The loss still sat with him. His wife, Claire, gone too soon. Her laughter haunted the spaces between thoughts. So he walked deeper into the wild where voices couldn't reach. He didn't notice the first claw mark right away. It was etched into the bark of an old birch tree near the trailhead. But 100 yards in, there was another, and this one was different. Deeper, messier. Bits of fur clung to the bark, and a streak of dark, dried red painted a jagged line down the trunk. He paused, his breath catching slightly in his throat. Bear territory. Fresh. Ethan crouched, brushing a finger lightly over the wound in the bark. It was wet. The kind of fresh that meant very recently. He stood slowly, listening. That's when he heard it. A low, drawn-out sound, like someone sobbing into the wind. Not the guttural growl of a predator or the warning bark of a startled animal, but something slower, stretched out. Hollow. It came again, and again. Closer. Every hair on Ethan's arm stood up. He reached back instinctively for the knife sheathed at his side. Useless, really, if what was out there wanted to hurt him. But it gave his hands something to do. He turned off the trail. Branches slapped at his arms and legs as he pushed through dense underbrush. The fog thickened the deeper he went, curling low around the base of the trees like something alive. He kept moving toward the sound, though everything in him screamed to stop. Then, on the other side of a small ridge, he saw her. A massive, grisly sow, her fur matted and stained, pacing frantically in a tight, agitated circle. Her massive shoulders rolled with each step, but it wasn't her size that froze Ethan in place. It was her face. Tears. Actual tears. Mud mixed with moisture tracked along her muzzle. She let out another cry, long, low, and heartbreaking. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He knew what this could be. A sow near her cub was no friend to humans. But she wasn't charging. She wasn't bluffing. She wasn't even watching the forest. Until she was. She stopped mid-pace and turned. Her eyes locked onto his. And for the briefest moment, the world stopped spinning. Ethan couldn't move. Her eyes didn't hold rage or warning. They held something else entirely. Pain. Desperation. Pleading. He took a slow, instinctive step backward, expecting her to react. She didn't. Instead, she turned around, walked a few feet and paused, looking over her shoulder. Ethan blinked, unsure if he was imagining it. The bear took a few more steps, turned again, looked back, then paused once more. She's leading me? Everything in his body told him to run. But something deeper, a voice he hadn't heard in a long time, whispered louder. He remembered Claire's voice one evening as they sat by the fire. Pain speaks the same language, no matter the species. His chest tightened. Ethan took a step forward. The bear moved again. And so it began. They moved deeper into the forest, Ethan trailing several yards behind, the bear never rushing, never straying too far ahead. Every few minutes she'd stop, look back, and then continue. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. The woods around them were unnaturally silent. No bird calls, no wind. Even the distant hum of insects had vanished. Just the soft crunch of Ethan's boots and the quiet shuffle of massive paws ahead of him. Time blurred. They climbed over moss-covered rocks, ducked beneath low-hanging branches, crossed shallow creeks. Ethan's thighs burned, but he didn't stop. What drove him wasn't just curiosity. It was the way she kept looking back, the way her massive head tilted as if begging, as if trusting. After what felt like hours, the terrain changed. The trees thinned out slightly, giving way to a jagged slope that dipped into a narrow ravine. The air felt colder here. He could see his breath again, even in daylight. The bear picked up speed. She reached the edge of the ravine and began pacing in wide, frantic loops. Her breathing was labored, almost panicked. Then she stopped and began pawing at a dense clump of brambles and fallen limbs. Ethan approached slowly, crouching to see through the tangled mess. That's when he saw it. Nestled beneath the brush, barely visible, was a tiny bear cub, no bigger than a house cat, its brown fur slick with mud, its limbs motionless. One leg jutted at a sickening angle, twisted in a way no limb should ever be. Ethan's breath caught. The cub was alive, but just barely. Its small chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid gasps. A weak sound escaped its throat, more like a whimper than a cry. The mother nudged the cub gently, over and over, as if trying to wake it. But the cub didn't respond. Ethan's stomach turned. This was why she came to him. Not to scare him, not to defend her territory. She needed help. He looked into her eyes again. Closer now. Those same wet, pain-soaked eyes. And for the first time since Claire died, Ethan felt something stir in his chest. A spark. A purpose. He dropped to his knees beside the cub, careful not to move too fast. The mother hovered inches away, her breathing loud in his ears. But she didn't stop him. She let him touch her baby. His fingers trembled as he gently touched the broken leg, the tiny ribs, the muddy snout. He swallowed hard. "This isn't good," he whispered aloud as if the bear could understand. "But I'm going to try." Ethan blinked. She was leading again, only slower now, more deliberately, as if she knew where he was going, as if she was guiding him toward safety. With the cub cradled gently in his arms, Ethan followed. The hours blurred. They trudged through thick brush, around boulders slick with moss, and over decaying logs that snapped underfoot. The cub's breath fluttered against his forearm, barely there, barely alive. The bear walked close, sometimes ahead, sometimes beside. She snapped her jaws at rustling shrubs, growled at distant howls, even snapped at a circling hawk that got too low. Ethan could barely believe it. She wasn't just letting him carry her baby, she was protecting them both. Each step burned, his calves cramped, his back ached, but he kept going, and with every step memories rose, unwanted but unstoppable. Claire's hands in his, her laugh echoing in hospital halls. The doctor's eyes the moment they said, "We can try to save her, or the baby." And then, nothing. Just sterile silence. He had lost them both. Now, as he held this fragile, trembling life against his chest, something shifted. This wasn't just survival. This was a second chance. Redemption. A vow. The path narrowed into a steep incline of gravel and loose shale. He gritted his teeth and climbed. Sweat dripped down his spine. His arms felt like lead. But the cub stirred slightly. Its first movement in over an hour, and he pushed on. Then, his boot slipped. It happened fast. Gravel gave way beneath his heel. His balance tipped. His arms jerked upward instinctively to protect the cub, but momentum dragged him sideways. He stumbled, and the cub slipped from his arms. No! But before the cub could hit the ground, a massive blur surged forward. The bear. She dove, twisted her neck, and caught the cub midair with her snout, gentle as wind. She set it down softly, curling her body around it. Ethan lay stunned on the ground, panting, scraped and shaken. She looked at him. Not with anger, but something else. Solidarity. "Thank you," he rasped, barely above a whisper. They rested briefly, Ethan checking the splint, brushing dirt off the cub's side. Then, as the sun dipped below the ridgeline, they continued. Night crept faster now. The shadows thickened. And then they heard it. Water. A stream? No. A river. They broke through the last thicket and found themselves at the edge of a narrow but fast-moving river. The current surged with melted snow from the higher peaks. There was no bridge, no crossing. Ethan's heart sank. The cub wouldn't survive being soaked, and he couldn't swim with it in his arms, not here. He looked at the bear helplessly. But she didn't hesitate. She stepped into the river, slow and deliberate, until the water reached her shoulders. She swam across with powerful strokes, reached the other side, and turned around. Then, another surprise. She let out a throaty call and lowered herself, crouching low at the bank. She wants him to follow. Ethan scanned the forest and spotted fallen limbs along the shore, driftwood, branches, snapped trunks. An idea sparked. He moved fast. He lashed 5 long branches together using shoelaces, rope from his pack, and even more torn fabric. He wedged a smaller branch diagonally for support. It wasn't elegant, but it would float. He laid the cub gently on top, securing it with straps and soft padding from his jacket. The bear waited silently on the opposite bank, pacing with worry. Ethan pushed the raft into the river and stepped into the icy current, gripping the tether line tight as it tugged and bobbed. His legs went numb almost instantly, the cold lashing up to his thighs. He waded slowly, pulling the raft beside him, teeth clenched as the current fought back. Halfway across, his foot caught on a submerged rock and he stumbled, water rising to his chest. But the raft held. He pushed forward. Step by grueling step, he inched towards the far shore. Finally, mercifully, he reached it. The bear met him with a soft huff and nuzzled the cub gently, her massive frame trembling with barely contained relief. Ethan collapsed beside them, soaked and shaking, arms wrapped around the tiny body that now felt impossibly warm in contrast to the river. They'd made it halfway, but the worst was still ahead. He unslung his pack, dug through the front pocket, and pulled out a small, weather-worn first aid kit. Bandages, alcohol wipes, gauze, painkillers, human supplies. But they'd have to do. The cub was breathing, but barely. Its fur was damp and cold to the touch. The broken leg was bent unnaturally, swollen at the joint. Ethan knew the signs of shock: shallow breathing, glazed eyes, limp limbs. He'd seen it before in dogs, in people. He cursed softly, biting the inside of his cheek. The mother bear didn't move. She stood over them like a living statue, the wind shifting strands of her fur, her flanks rising and falling with quiet desperation. She didn't growl, didn't flinch. Her eyes never left Ethan's. She was trusting him. That trust nearly broke him. He tore a strip from his undershirt, wincing as the fabric ripped against his ribs. Then he searched the forest floor for 2 small, straight sticks, birch, light and strong. He aligned them along the cub's leg and gently, carefully, wrapped the cloth around them into a crude splint. The cub whimpered. Ethan froze. The mother's ears perked, a low rumble building in her throat. It wasn't a warning. It was protective. A mother trying not to panic. "I know," Ethan whispered, holding his hands up for her to see. "I know it hurts. I'm sorry." He tightened the last knot on the splint, adjusted the cub gently into the crook of his arms, and tried to stand. The moment he lifted the tiny body, the cub squealed, high, pitiful, brief. The mother stepped forward instantly, a guttural growl rising. Ethan held still, heart pounding. She didn't attack, didn't lunge, just stopped, her breathing ragged, her gaze locked on the cub. Ethan slowly lowered himself again, settling the cub back onto the ground, trying to calm them both. But it wasn't enough. The cub was getting colder by the minute. Its limbs shivered involuntarily. There was no way it would make it through the night. He looked up toward the sky, clouds thick and gray, dusk already beginning to creep in through the treetops. He had no choice. The ranger station was 15 miles west, straight through hostile, brutal terrain.